Your labs are perfect. You've heard that before, haven't you? Rachel is 46. She's been taking levothyroxine for 3 years. Her TSH is right in the middle of the normal range. Her doctor seems satisfied. On paper, everything looks controlled. But in real life, she's getting worse. The fatigue is back. The brain fog is worse. She's gained 12 pounds without changing how she eats. She's waking up at 3 a.m. with her heart pounding. She's snapping at her kids over small things. Last Tuesday, she cried in her car because she forgot where she'd parked. And lately, she started asking herself a question that scares her more than the symptoms do. What if I'm losing my mind? Her thyroid is supposedly controlled. Her labs are normal. So why does she feel like her body is falling apart? Because this may not be her thyroid alone. It may be thyroid disease and perimenopause colliding at the same time. If you have hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's, you're in your 40s or early 50s, and you've been feeling worse again despite normal labs, this video is for you. In our last video on levothyroxine, we talked about 5 reasons thyroid medication can fail you, even when your TSH looks fine. But there's a 6th reason we didn't fully unpack, and for millions of women in midlife, it may be the missing piece: perimenopause. Not the final stopping point of menopause, but the long transition leading up to it. It can begin in your early 40s and last for years. During that time, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone do not decline in a neat, predictable line. They fluctuate, they spike, they crash, they change month to month, sometimes week to week, in ways that don't always show up clearly on a standard lab report. And in a minute, I'm going to show you why that matters, even if your doctor keeps telling you your thyroid is stable. Most women picture menopause as a clear threshold. Your period stops, the hot flashes begin, and that marks the change. But for many women, that is not how it unfolds. Perimenopause is the long, messy, unpredictable runway before that point. And if you already have a thyroid condition, that runway can feel like constant turbulence with no clear landing. Here's the problem. The symptoms of perimenopause and the symptoms of undertreated thyroidism overlap so much that women get trapped between them all the time. Fatigue, brain fog, weight gain, hair thinning, dry skin, sleep disruption, anxiety, mood swings, constipation, low libido, joint pain, cold intolerance, palpitations, difficulty concentrating, memory lapses. Now ask yourself this. If those symptoms started getting worse again, would your doctor immediately know which system was driving them? Or would you get the answer so many women get: your labs are normal? Pick 10 women with those symptoms, and you'll find some in perimenopause, some with thyroid dysfunction, and a significant number with both. And that overlap is where many women start doubting themselves. Because one doctor says it's probably hormones, another says the thyroid looks fine, another says it might be stress, aging, sleep, or lifestyle. Meanwhile, the person living inside that body feels less and less recognizable. That's the real damage here, not just the symptoms, the confusion. Because when your body changes in ways you can't explain, and every appointment ends with reassurance but no real answer, you start to question your own perception. You start wondering whether you're being dramatic, whether you're too sensitive, whether you're failing to cope with something everyone else is apparently handling better than you. Rachel felt exactly that way. At first, she assumed her thyroid dose needed adjusting. Then she wondered if maybe she was just burned out. Then she started blaming herself. Maybe she wasn't sleeping enough. Maybe she was eating the wrong things. Maybe she was just getting older and needed to accept it. But here's the part that changes everything. It may not be one thing going wrong. It may be 2 things interacting. And when that happens, a standard one-system approach often misses the full picture.
Today, we're going to break down how thyroid disease and perimenopause interact, why they can make each other worse, why TSH alone often misses what matters most in midlife, and what practical questions you can bring to a clinician who actually understands the overlap. No miracle protocols, no hype, no expensive supplement stack, just a clearer framework. Let's start with something that should get your attention. This overlap is more common than many women realize. In other words, this is not some rare edge case. This is not 1 in 1,000. This is a large group of women dealing with both systems at once and being treated as if they are separate, unrelated issues. And that's where medicine often breaks down. Because the doctor monitoring your thyroid may not be the same doctor thinking deeply about perimenopause. Your endocrinologist may be watching TSH and medication dosing, but not asking about irregular cycles, breast tenderness, worsening PMS-like symptoms, or new sleep changes. Your OB/GYN or menopause specialist may be focused on bleeding changes, hot flashes, and hormone therapy, but not looking carefully at your thyroid status, antibodies, or medication timing. Each clinician may be doing something reasonable within their lane. The problem is that your body does not live in lanes. And that's the first big idea of this video. 2 systems, 1 body. Not thyroid over here and reproductive hormones over there. 1 body, 1 lived experience, 1 set of symptoms being generated by multiple systems that influence each other constantly. This is why so many women say, "I know something is off, but I can't get anyone to look at the whole picture." They're not imagining that problem. The system really is fragmented. Rachel's experience made that painfully obvious. Her endocrinologist checked TSH every 6 months and said she was fine. Her primary care doctor told her a lot of women feel tired in their 40s. Her gynecologist asked about hot flashes, but didn't ask about thyroid dosing. Nobody asked when her periods had started changing. Nobody asked whether her symptoms followed a pattern during the month. Nobody connected her worsening sleep, irritability, and fog with the hormonal transition already underway. Nobody was looking at both systems at the same time. That does not necessarily mean her doctors were careless. It means the structure of care was not built for complexity. Now here's where the story gets more interesting, because this is often how it begins. Something changes, but not all at once. Maybe your periods become slightly less predictable. Maybe your sleep gets lighter. Maybe anxiety shows up in a body that used to feel emotionally steady. Maybe you begin waking in the night or feeling wired and tired at the same time. Maybe your thyroid labs still look acceptable, but you no longer feel the way you felt a year ago. And that is where many women get stuck, because the shift is real, but subtle enough at first that it gets minimized. So let me give you a concept that makes this easier to understand: the unmasking effect. Perimenopause is not just a change in periods, it is a whole body transition. It affects sleep, mood, metabolism, temperature regulation, and immune responsiveness. And when that shift hits a body that was already compensating for an underlying thyroid condition, it can expose weaknesses that were previously being held together just well enough. Think of it this way. If your thyroid condition was a crack in the foundation that had been patched and stabilized, perimenopause can be the season of heavy rain that suddenly reveals where the structure is still vulnerable. The crack didn't appear out of nowhere, but now the pressure on the system is different, and what used to hold is no longer holding the same way. That's why a woman can be stable on levothyroxine for 2 years and then suddenly start feeling worse again in her mid-40s, even though nobody sees a dramatic lab change. This is not failure. This is physiology under new conditions. And here's the third big idea. A normal lab snapshot may not reflect a changing hormonal landscape. TSH is useful, it matters, but it is not the whole story, especially in midlife.
TSH tells you how the pituitary is responding to circulating thyroid hormone. It does not tell you by itself how well thyroid hormone is being activated, absorbed, transported, and used throughout the body. It does not tell you how fluctuating estrogen may be affecting availability. It does not tell you whether falling progesterone is changing sleep, mood, or overall stability in ways that make symptoms worse even if your dose hasn't changed. And this is where many women start feeling crazy because the number looks stable, but they do not. Here's one of the most important mechanisms to understand, and I'll keep it practical. Estrogen affects thyroid function in multiple ways. One of the best known involves a protein called Thyroid-Binding Globulin, or TBG. This protein binds thyroid hormone in the bloodstream. When TBG rises, more thyroid hormone becomes bound, and less remains free and available to act where it is needed. So, your blood work can look broadly adequate while your tissues are experiencing something different. Now consider what happens in perimenopause. Estrogen is not just drifting downward, it is fluctuating. Some months it may run high, other months it may dip sharply. Those fluctuations can influence TBG, which can influence how much free thyroid hormone is available, which can influence how you feel. So if you've ever thought, I don't feel consistently bad, I feel weirdly unstable, that pattern matters. Because when symptoms change with cycle shifts, new hormone therapy, sleep disruption, or stress, a single lab value drawn on one morning may miss the lived reality entirely. Rachel noticed that too, even before anyone explained it to her. Some weeks she felt almost normal. Other weeks she felt like a stranger to herself. There were mornings she could function well enough to think maybe the worst had passed, and then 3 days later, she'd wake up exhausted, puffy, irritable, and unable to focus. Because the symptoms were inconsistent, she started questioning whether they were even real. But fluctuating symptoms do not mean imaginary symptoms. They often mean fluctuating physiology. Now, there's another layer here, especially for women on levothyroxine alone. T4 is the storage form. T3 is the active form your cells actually use. Some people convert T4 to T3 efficiently, others do not. And conversion can be affected by stress, inflammation, nutrient deficiencies, gut issues, sleep disruption, illness, and hormonal changes. That is one reason two women can have similar TSH values and feel completely different. Progesterone matters here too. In early perimenopause, progesterone often declines before estrogen settles into a more consistent decline. That shift can affect sleep quality, nervous system stability, and overall hormonal resilience. So even before a woman is having obvious hot flashes or skipped periods, she may already be feeling more fatigue, more anxiety, more insomnia, and more brain fog. In other words, a woman may look fine by thyroid standards while her broader hormonal environment is becoming much less supportive. And that isn't the whole picture. Some women begin hormone replacement therapy and expect it to solve everything. Their hot flashes improve, sleep gets somewhat better, they feel a little more like themselves, but not fully. The fatigue remains, the brain fog remains, the weight keeps climbing, the mood never fully steadies. And then the self-doubt returns. Is the HRT not working? Do I need more estrogen? Is my thyroid still a problem? Is something else wrong with me? Sometimes the answer is simpler than it looks. The hormone therapy may be helping, but the thyroid has not been re-optimized in that new hormonal context. And that is a detail many women are never told. When estrogen therapy is started, especially oral estrogen, it can increase TBG. That means it can change the balance between bound and free thyroid hormone, and in some women, increase the need for thyroid hormone adjustment.
So a woman may begin HRT for valid reasons, feel hopeful, and then slowly notice her old thyroid-type symptoms creeping back. Not because she failed treatment, not because her body is impossible, because one system changed and the other system was never reevaluated in response. This is exactly where women fall through the cracks. Rachel had started a low-dose estrogen patch months earlier, around the same time she began feeling worse again. Her gynecologist was focused on perimenopausal symptoms. Her endocrinologist was focused on the thyroid. Neither one was looking closely at the interaction between the two. So what did Rachel conclude? That maybe she was just the kind of woman who never really gets better. That conclusion is devastating, and it's also often wrong. One important nuance here, the route of estrogen matters. Transdermal estrogen, like patches, gels, and some creams, tends to have less impact on TBG than oral estrogen. That does not mean one route is automatically better for every woman. It means the delivery method can matter when thyroid management is part of the picture. And that's the kind of question worth discussing with a knowledgeable clinician instead of assuming all estrogen works the same way in all bodies. And here's the trap many women get stuck in next. One doctor adjusts the thyroid dose a little, another adjusts the HRT dose a little, one symptom improves, another gets worse, you feel slightly better, then plateau, another tweak gets made. Everything is individually reasonable, but nobody ever steps back and asks the question that matters most. What is the combined picture? Not, is this thyroid or hormones, but how are thyroid function, hormone fluctuations, sleep, nutrient status, and treatment changes interacting in this one person at this stage of life? That is a very different question, and it leads to much better conversations. So let me give you a practical framework you can actually use. I call it the two systems, one body checklist. Not because you need to become your own endocrinologist, not because you need to show up at your next appointment with a research thesis, but because asking better questions often gets better care. Start here. When was your last full thyroid review? Not just TSH, but free T4 and, when appropriate, free T3 and antibodies if you have Hashimoto's. Have your symptoms changed alongside your cycle, even if the cycle is becoming irregular? If you started HRT, changed the dose, changed the route, or stopped it, was your thyroid status rechecked after that shift? Have ferritin, B12, and vitamin D been checked recently, especially if the fatigue and brain fog feel out of proportion to your labs? And has anyone looked seriously at sleep and gut function, especially if you're waking unrefreshed, crashing in the afternoon, dealing with snoring, reflux, constipation, bloating, or irregular digestion? Those questions alone can change the quality of the conversation. And here is the most useful opener of all. My TSH is in range, but I've been feeling significantly worse over the last several months. I'm wondering whether we could look at both my thyroid status and the possibility of perimenopause or hormone-related changes together, because my symptoms don't feel fully explained by TSH alone. That is not unreasonable. That is not dramatic. That is not a patient being difficult. That is a patient describing a pattern clearly. And if that question is immediately brushed aside without thoughtful discussion, that tells you something important. Not necessarily that the clinician is a bad person, but that they may not be the right partner for a more complex midlife hormonal picture. Now let me ask you something that matters. What changed first, your labs or the way you felt in your body? And a second question. Did treatment stop working, or did your stage of life change faster than the treatment plan did? Those questions matter because once you understand that your symptoms may reflect interaction rather than personal weakness, the shame starts to lift. Rachel finally got that. There was no dramatic miracle, no one test that explained everything overnight, no one supplement that fixed her life in a week.
What changed was much less flashy and much more useful. A clinician finally looked at both systems together. Her thyroid labs were reviewed in context, not in isolation. Her current symptoms were taken seriously. Her hormone therapy timeline was factored in. A ferritin deficiency that had been overlooked was addressed. Her sleep was discussed. Her treatment plan was adjusted thoughtfully instead of reflexively, and the result was not she felt 25 again. It was better than that because it was real. She could get through the workday without crashing by early afternoon. She stopped waking in panic most nights. Her thinking became clearer. She felt more emotionally steady. She started recognizing herself again. Not perfect, not frozen in youth, but functional, grounded, and no longer at war with her own body. And for a lot of women in this season of life, that is the real goal. Not perfect lab numbers, not the fantasy of never aging, a body that feels understandable again, a life you can participate in again, a version of yourself you can recognize. So if you're living at the intersection of thyroid disease and perimenopause, hear this clearly. You are not broken, you are not lazy, you are not imagining it, and you are not failing because your body became more complex in midlife. You may simply be dealing with a combined hormonal picture that many standard appointments are not designed to catch quickly. That's why this matters. Because once you stop asking, why am I like this, and start asking what systems might be interacting here, you move from self-blame to strategy. And strategy is where things begin to improve. Before today ends, write down one question from this video that nobody has ever asked you in an appointment. Maybe it's, did my symptoms change when my cycle changed? Did anyone recheck my thyroid after I started hormone therapy? Could iron, B12, vitamin D, or sleep apnea be making this worse? Am I being evaluated as a whole person or as separate lab values handled by separate specialists? Pick the one question that hit you hardest. Bring that question to your next appointment. And if you've been told more than once that you're fine because your labs look fine, I want to say this as clearly as I can. A normal lab result is not the same thing as a normal life. Those are not interchangeable. You deserve more than a reassuring sentence attached to an incomplete workup. You deserve a clinician who can tolerate complexity, who can listen for patterns, and who understands that midlife women's health is not reducible to a single number on a page. Advocating for yourself is not overreacting. It is often the first step towards finally being understood. If this video described what the last 6 months of your life have felt like, pay attention to which symptom you felt the most dismissed about. The fatigue, the brain fog, the anxiety, the sleep disruption, the weight changes, or the feeling that nobody was looking at the whole picture. That answer tells you a lot about where the conversation needs to begin. We also have videos on thyroid optimization after 40, bone health in perimenopause, and how to think clearly about hormone therapy. Real information, no hype, just practical guidance for women who want to feel informed, functional, and strong in their 40s, 50s, and beyond. Because health span matters, and you deserve to feel at home in your own body. Everything in this video is general educational information. It is not medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Do not change your medications or treatment plan based on this video. Always consult a qualified healthcare provider who knows your individual health history. If you have concerns about your thyroid, hormones, or perimenopause symptoms, seek guidance from a licensed medical professional.